During this coronavirus pandemic, there is a group of people who are underrepresented. And those are people who are stuck in abusive, dysfunctional homes. For those people, quarantine has become a living hell. It is when you are stuck, trapped in the house with the very person, or maybe the family system, that is abusing you. And to be clear, many times when we think of abuse, we think of physical violence. But there is a whole lot more to abuse than that. There is a whole lot more unspoken, unseen things that happen that leave indelible marks. I know from personal experience what it's like to be on this end. When you know that you have an afternoon or a day coming up where you are going to be left alone with that parent or your spouse who is abusive, you have a flood of anxiety. Prior to that, you go into survival mode. Or if you have a family vacation coming up, and you know from experience that family vacations are absolute hell because you cannot get away. There is no safe haven, there's no refuge. I recently heard in the news in France about some of the domestic violence issues because people are stuck in place indoors. And during this time when our emotions are very strong in a number of ways, that sometimes people are taking that out on their partner or on their children, and that the resources for victims of that violence are limited or temporarily shut down. And I read about this and I was just absolutely livid. And it got me thinking a lot. I've been wanting to talk some more. If you've been watching my channel, you know I talk a lot about codependency and how to heal from codependency. And I'm trying to tie this in to that topic. But there's so much I can say. I am not going to cover nearly enough in this short video. I could talk about why we stay in abusive relationships, why someone stays. I can talk about how those relationships start. And there's a lot of misconceptions and misinformation that, if someone's in an abusive relationship, why doesn't she just leave? I can talk about self-esteem and self-confidence and why this is so important that we know our value. Any number of those topics warrant a course unto themselves. And so many of us did not grow up being taught the tools to have a healthy sense of self. Instead, what we were taught was to be in fear, was to have self-doubt, was to value the opinions of others more than our opinion of ourselves. It is time that we stop giving our power away to people we don't know, people we don't even like, people we shouldn't give a fuck about. But we do it all the time. How many times do we look in the mirror or we look at ourselves over a video call and all that we think about ourselves is criticism? Getting older, fat, more lines, bags under my eyes, this is wrong, whatever it is. Instead of thinking that, I would like you to consider maybe saying this instead, or thinking this. Well, if someone doesn't like my face, their problem, not mine. I'm the only one that's got to live with my face. I'm the only one that's got to live with this body. So if someone else doesn't like it, their problem. It's not mine. But we automatically, many of us, not everyone, go through life always trying to please, always trying to make sure that we look good in the eyes of someone else. And I learned this too. And if you've been watching my channel, you know that I have worked on this. I've talked about it openly and I share my struggles. I share this stuff because I'm very comfortable with it and I accept it. And I accept that that's something I will always be working on and that you have your own stuff. I'm not unique in this way. To tie back into codependent relationships, Here's a little story, very short. Long time ago, I started dating someone, and it was someone I had known for a while as a friend. And he said to me, well, I'm a dick. And I looked at him and I said, well, why would I want to date a man who's a dick? If someone tells you who they are and your response is, oh, no, you're not. You're really sweet. You're very nice. No, I don't know why you say that. That's positively projecting. When we positively project, we project the image of what we want that person to be onto them, all the while ignoring who they are saying and showing us who they are. We get into trouble when we do that. If a woman goes up to you and says, well, I'm a bitch, believe her. If a man says something like that, hey, I'm a dick, or woman, I'm a bitch, believe what they say. We get into trouble if you hear that information or something like that, some derivative of that, and you say, no, I'm only going to see these good parts of them and go with that. Or those rougher edges that they have, I know they have some rough edges. I know I can soften those rough edges. This is a bad idea. When we don't take people for who they are and try to fix them, try to change them, and try to mold them into who we want them to be, we're kind of setting ourselves up for a gigantic failure, a dysfunctional relationship, a codependent relationship. And think about this. You would not like it if someone entered into a relationship with you and tried to change you. Not to mention, when we try to change others, it places an enormous burden and slashes our freedom, because now we have to not only try to govern ourselves, if we're even doing that at all, but now we have to try to govern and manage how someone else is behaving. That is a boundary violation of our own. We are now crossing the line of, I have to monitor, evaluate, manage how someone else is behaving instead of letting them be who they are. When we begin a relationship that starts out codependent, we are seeing things in the other person we don't like. And instead of accepting that and saying, it's not for me, that's fine, move on. There's someone else better for you and there's someone else better for me. But once we decide, here are qualities in this person that I don't want in a partner. But because if you are codependent, you are starved of connection. And coming from that lack, from that neediness of so wanting deep, meaningful connection, we go into that relationship anyway, and we try to change that person. And also because we were taught that this is how a relationship goes. This is how you do relationship. This is what was modeled for you. You had to live perhaps maybe with parents who also treated you with some sort of dysfunction or abuse. It doesn't always have to have that prerequisite. But for whatever reason, maybe you learned that at some point. And you learned that you have to work hard for love. You have to work hard in a relationship. That if things are easy and they're just sort of happening naturally, there must be something wrong. Where's the drama? Where's the strife? Where's the hardship? Because isn't that how a relationship should be? But my friends, that is the foundation for a dysfunctional relationship. And so many of us learned, starting with our sense of self being faulty. If that foundation is not secure, if we do not heal our own wounds, if we don't heal ourselves and look at, what are my weaknesses? What do I struggle with? Where do I know I tend to falter? And work on that. And I don't mean on a superficial level. I mean working on that on a very deep level. Getting down to the root. Yep, I'm talking about childhood bullshit. because it always usually comes back down to working on our childhood shit and heal those wounds. If we don't do that work, then we will take that and go into our relationship. We have to develop self-awareness. We all have our stuff. We all do. With self-awareness, we can then take that and work on that, and we have a level of honesty with ourselves. If we don't know, if we're not even aware, then how can we then go out into the world and have healthy relationships in any way? If you don't like you, if you are constantly tearing yourself down, if you're constantly trying to people please, then how do you expect anyone else to like you? But we do this all the time. That's why I always talk about, and will keep saying on this channel, we've got to work on our self-esteem, our self-love. And I don't mean a narcissistic self-love. I don't mean being better than anyone else. I mean developing a lot of self-awareness. And then seeing who we are and saying, I'm still enough. I'm still okay. I don't have to prove myself for someone else. I don't have to be so overly concerned with what someone else thinks of me or of my appearance. I do need to ask myself, do I like how I'm conducting my life? Do I feel good about my relationship with myself? You got to do you, and you have to be you, regardless of what your family says, regardless of what your culture says. It pisses me off to no end when I hear people making excuses for other people's bad behavior. Been there, done that. Again, I'm speaking from experience on this one. You deserve to be treated with love and with respect. But that means you have to set boundaries with others and not allow it to continue if that's how you are being treated. And if we do not learn this growing up as children, if we don't grow up in a family that teaches us that even as children, we deserve to be respected. If you grew up being treated as, well, you're a fucking kid, who cares? Deal with it. You don't have the right to have respect to your things, to your body, to you. And you grow up learning that your boundaries are wide open, then we have to learn that later in life. And my intent in making this video is to bring your attention to these topics. Because it's never okay to treat someone and verbally abuse them, sexually abuse them, or physically abuse them. And it is also not okay to continue to accept that. We gotta draw back and look at ourselves first. And chances are, if we are in an abusive relationship, we've probably been in more than one. And that means we have to keep coming back and do some really deep healing work. Starting with ourselves, working on our inner child. Healing those deep wounds that says, I don't deserve better. I can't ask for what I want. I don't ever get what I want. Well, I'm sure he didn't mean it. Maybe things will improve. But you don't need me to tell you that they don't, and they won't, until you work on that in yourself. I can go on, and I can kind of break down a lot of the subtopics in this video a lot. And I want to keep continuing to talk about a lot of these issues. Again, the news about victims of abuse during this pandemic and how they are suffering and how they're trapped just really kind of lit me up. And it just kind of reignited that spark in me to keep putting out this message of why we need self-love, why we need to think well of ourselves and to love ourselves. I'm going to close here. If you have questions or comments, leave it for me below the video. Again, I will return and talk more about this topic. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching. Take care.